The final part of the final part of Attack on Titan finally came out 3 days ago, and I was talking about it with my friends at the gym, Nick and Isaiah, and we had some thoughts, uh, particularly about the end credits. The end credits tend to be a dry part of anime, movies, shows. Sometimes they'll try to add some color to it by having some footage or some uh, extra stuff that you wouldn't see without watching the end credits. With the case of Attack on Titan, it wasn't so much it was extra material. It's that it it had as much story in those few minutes of end credits as did the 4 seasons before that. And the reason for that is because it gives us direction about what's going on with the anime. Basically, I'm talking about the last episode here in case that wasn't clear. So, disclaimer, spoiler alert, etc. I have notes here about exactly what happened. Um, Actually, the notes are not about that, so I can tell you this off the top of my memory. This part, um, the um, the scene we see is that we see Aaron's grave underneath the tree under which he used to rest. We see Mikasa and all of Aaron's friends visiting the grave. As time passes, we see Mikasa and her husband, who looks kind of like Jean. It's kind of hard to see exactly. And they have a child who might actually be hugging the tombstone. And we see the seasons changing, times passing, number of years passes. We see, I believe Mikasa is holding a cane, and it seems that a lot of Aaron's friends, Mikasa included, have their own children visiting the grave every year. Um, and then we see that Mikasa herself passes away, and as many years pass, many seasons, many years. Uh, what we're overlooking probably what is Shiganshina. The walls are no longer there, so it's easier to expand, and we see that the city itself has expanded horizontally and then ultimately vertically. We see smoke stacks, or not smoke stacks, rather smoke coming up from the city in various places, probably indicating factories, and then ultimately skyscrapers start to appear. At the same time, the tree itself is getting bigger, it's getting wider and taller, to the point that it swallows up Aaron's tombstone. Kind of see it just kind of like wedged into the tree. Um, so Aaron's burial site is actually underneath the trunk of the tree. Also, this the skyscrapers become more futuristic in appearance, and ultimately they get attacked by aircraft, and very futuristic looking things. Basically, a lot of the buildings are destroyed, and then many years down the line, a boy and his dog are walking, and then they enter a hollow in that tree. Um, the I didn't get what the point of this was. I guess I'm not as um, savvy as a lot of the other viewers. I did a little search, and they say, "Oh, this tree looks like the tree under which Ymir got her powers when she came into contact with the source of all living things, source of all living matter. That's the proper term." So basically, I looked that up. It was in season 4, episode 21. Basically, what happens with that? It's a story that we see being told over to Historia, and Eldia is at war with Marley. Marley comes into Eldian turf and basically captures everyone, including Ymir. Ymir is singled out or pointed out or ratted on, whatever you want to call it, as being the one who let the pig go. The king of Marley says, "Okay, now you're free," and by that they mean that she's allowed to try to run to escape while the soldiers shoot arrows at her. This happens. Interestingly enough, a dog is chasing her in this scene as well, kind of like the dog in the final scene of the series. Ymir sees a hollow in a tree, escapes into it for refuge, slips and lands in a pool of water, kind of like the water that was seen in the last scene, and then that the source of all living matter, which I'm going to just call it the source now. The source comes into contact with her, gives her power. She now becomes the founding Titan, which looks a lot like Aaron's Titan when he comes into contact with Zeke, and he just forms that gigantic skeleton, went during the rumbling. Um, so now Ymir has the power of the Founding Titan, and Eldia is able to make great victories. In the words of the subtitles of the King of Eldia, Ymir built roads, cultivated lands, and bridged mountains. And then ultimately she passes away after 13 years. The curse of Ymir. Power goes to the other 9 Titans. And then basically for 1800 years or so, Eldia is in charge. And then gets to the point where the king of Eldia feels bad or at least one of the kings feels bad, gets a little subservient. And then Marley is able to take advantage of it, take the power of of many of the Titans, and then Eldia escapes to Paradis. They make cannons there, and Marley makes blimps and photographs. So technology is advancing. So speaking of technology, so those are the notes that I had written. I rewatched that scene. Speaking of technology, the question when I first was explaining this to people was like the setting, and it's like I like steampunk kind of thing, and I'm like, oh, it's this society, and like they don't have electricity, but they have other technology. They have this omnidirectional gear. They're able to like fly around, hooking onto buildings and stuff. Then we learned about Marley, and I was like, okay, Marley is like 1800s ish kind of technology with us. So they have cars, for instance, photography, and then cars also appear on the scene during during that final end credit scene when Mikasa is getting old right before she passes away. We see a car at Eren's grave. So basically, we see society is building up, and then the year 845. Marley decides, hey, let's go invade Paradis. That causes the whole uprising of Eren, which later becomes the whole Jaegerist thing, and Eren deciding, hey, I'm going to kill everyone who's not part of Paradis, which ultimately leads to what we find out was Eren's kind of sacrifice of himself, erasing the memories of Mikasa and Armin so that they would not know that he truly did not despise them, but just was trying to make them hate him so that they would be able to kill him, so that the world would think that Mikasa and Armin and the Eldians were the heroes who killed the evil Eren, who actually did that on purpose because he was trying to make them the heroes. And then hopefully no one would touch them ever again because they were heroes. But then as the end credits show, after a certain number of years, history repeats itself, and presumably Marley decides to go after Eldia again. So this scene of the boy going into the hollow of the tree would then indicate that the Eldians then get the Founding Titan again, get the Titans again, and then are able to vanquish Marley in this cycle, which is now doomed to repeat itself. So that's why I said the end credits themselves are full of history, are full of information, because they are telling us that the future might be repeating itself. And like the reviews online say, like, we're not sure if that's what it's hinting at, but I rewatched both of the scenes. The trees are extremely similar, and I don't think that the creator could be hinting at anything else aside from the fact that that those two trees are basically the same, and that when the boy enters, he touches the source, which was still in Eren's head, his cerebrospinal fluid, basically, which was in the grave, which is under the tree at that point, which is accessible through the hollow. I said it hints at nothing else besides that history is bound to repeat itself, but perhaps it hints at something else. Perhaps it hints at the fact that history has repeated itself. Perhaps the setting for Attack on Titan is not in the 1800s, but perhaps it actually is in the future. And this is a big claim, but let me explain myself. And here's why I took notes, because I want to make sure that I get this clear. Basically, let's say the year is 2500 or 3000, whatever the year may be. The Founding Titan realizes that in order to save Eldia, he or she must do a rumbling as well as get him or herself killed by the Eldians to make the Eldians seem heroes. This happens, and then ultimately the world, so much time passes that the world forgets all about the Titans, but still remembers that there is a grudge against Eldia. Ultimately, Marley gets the strength to attack Eldia. Um, Eldia gets persecuted. One of the Eldians touches the source, gets the founding titan, and then the nine titans, and then including all the other titans. And then the rumbling happens again, and we're back to the top. So that's an interesting thought. Again, that this has already happened. That Ymir was not the first. Ymir is not the last founding titan, or original founding titan, i.e., the one who actually touches the source. We see that the boy at the end would be the next one, but there were probably people before Ymir, thousands of years earlier, successively, as well. So this is a thing which keeps happening and has kept happening every thousands of years or so. Maybe it's 3,000 years, who knows? It just got a lot of implications for today, because if this narrative that I just mentioned is correct, if this theory is correct, then Marley attacks Eldia. They forget about the Titans. Over 1,800 years, they forget about it. I've seen people forget about what happened 10 years ago in terms of history. So over 1,800 years, certainly. People forget about the Titans, just remember, oh yeah, those Eldians are trouble, and don't know why. They just know that they're basically should be at war with them in their minds, so they attack. And this has happened with a lot of people. I mean, it's Romeo and Juliet, the Capulets and the Montagues. Why are they at war with each other? It's like, who remembers? And you have a lot of countries, same kind of thing, and friends also. It's just like our spouses. A lot of relationships are just damaged and stay damaged, even though they can't remember exactly, what the source of the problem was. So I'm making this video. I think it's cool. It's a cool thought that the last scene showing us not just the future but the past. Also, I'm trying to offer us a little bit of hope. As a society, I get why we're at war with each other, and it's because of this. It's because we don't even remember anymore, but we have these grudges which go back thousands of years. So I want to leave you guys with just 3 words that it's the same 3 words I told Nick after we both kind of like were telling each other how the last episode made us cry. And it's just to make the world a better place. Shinzo o Sasageo.